Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, today is an exciting day. Yesterday, we were able to process all 50 of the Cornish cross chickens that we've been raising. So they are no longer here on the homestead. They're moving to freezer camp instead. We're excited to have a year's worth of that meat in our freezer. But today we're starting over completely new with something else in the brooder barn, and I'm excited to share that with you. The post office called just a little while ago, and normally when they call, they say, you know, we've got a box here for you. You need to come get them right now. There's chicks or whatever in the box. Come get them. But they actually called today and said, we have a delivery coming for you at 1 o'clock. So would you come around 2 o'clock to pick them up? And it's actually our new delivery of ducklings. So today we're going to be getting 20 new ducklings to start with on the homestead. As you guys know, we absolutely love having ducks on the homestead, but over the last few years our numbers have just dwindled. Some got eaten by predators, some died of various reasons, maybe old age, I don't know. We've had some for quite a long time now. And so we're down to just 3 adult ducks here on the homestead. So today we're getting 20 new ones, 2 different breeds. I'm not going to share that with you until we go pick them up. But we're getting 2 different breeds. We're excited to have them, but we need to get everything ready in the brooder so that when we bring them home, everything is set up and it's all ready for them. Now, you guys have seen us do videos in the past about raising chicks. We do a lot of chick raising here on the homestead, but ducklings are just a little bit different. There's some things that we do differently that we've learned over time that we think are really helpful and hopefully will help you if you're going to do ducklings yourself. Alright, so we're inside of the brooder barn. It's not a fancy barn at all, but it does really well for the chicks. The nice thing about this barn is that it has a cement floor, and that does help when the chicks are real little. I think it just makes it a nicer environment for them. Now, ducklings can be really messy, so after just a few weeks old, we'll actually get these guys outside because they're going to want to make a big mess all the time. But for these first couple weeks, when they're real little, we need to start them in a nice enclosed environment. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put down some bedding. What we like to use for ducklings is wood chips. We use pine bedding, and we buy the ones that have the larger flakes. That way they don't try to eat it. They don't mistake it for their food. They just use it what it's supposed to be used for, which is bedding. But it does give them a nice warm place to be able to bed down in and snuggle up to each other. Believe it or not, we've still got a couple nights coming up here in southern Missouri that are going to be down in the 30s. So these ducklings are going to need to be protected for a while yet. But it won't be much longer and the warm weather will be here. One thing that we've done that we think is really helpful and, you know, really makes things easier for a maintenance thing is we've attached some boards here. Again, nothing fancy, just some scrap wood that we've had. But as you come in the door of the brooder, we've left about 2 feet, and then we put these boards up, which gives the ducklings or chicks or whatever just a little bit smaller space, but it makes it so that you can open the door without everybody trying to run out right away. I guess you could put a board right across the door, but I like to be able to get in a little ways and shut the door behind me, like if it's raining or something, and still have some area to work without everybody at your feet. So just something that we like to do that seems to help out a little bit. Alright, we're going to start spreading all of this out. It doesn't have to be a real thick layer. As long as you've got some bedding everywhere, that's all that really matters. Because ultimately, you're going to change this several times. So, alright, now that our pine bedding is down everywhere, we're going to move on to their food and water. First thing we're going to do is get their feeder set up. Now, ducklings are a little bit different than chicks when it comes to food. With chicks, you just basically go out and buy what's called chick starter, which makes it pretty easy. You just buy a bag of chick starter, you start them on chick starter until they're close to laying age, or, you know, whatever, if you're raising them for meat, until they get to the growth stage. Then you move them to either a grower feed or you move them to a layer feed, and it's pretty easy. Ducks aren't quite that easy, at least not around here. They don't sell anything called duck starter, so you need to kind of know what you're doing when it comes to ducks. The main thing with feeding ducklings is the percentage of protein in their diet. You need to start them on a pretty high protein feed, but only for a real short amount of time. So we're going to be starting our ducklings on a 22% game bird feed. And that is what they're going to be on for the first 2 weeks of their life. After 2 weeks, we're going to need to lower their protein percentage. We're going to actually lower it down to about 18%, and they'll stay on that for about a month or so. After that, they can actually move to an even lower protein percentage, and we'll get them down to about a 16%. The reason that you want to do all of this is if you keep ducklings, or other waterfowl for that matter, on a high protein percentage for a long amount of time, like say until they're 2 or 3 months old, there's a very high likelihood that they will develop a condition called angel wing. And we actually have had this happen when we first started with ducklings. Basically what angel wing is if you keep them on too high of a percentage of protein, one of their wings, or sometimes even both of their wings, will stick straight out. And they won't be able to put them down. And for the most part, they'll be like that for the rest of their lives. So you really do need to know what you're doing with the protein percentages on ducklings. Now, a lot of people might wonder, why not then just start them on a lower protein percentage right away? You really need the higher protein to get them off to a good start, so they grow strong right off the bat. If you start them at a low protein percentage, believe it or not, they can actually become almost paralyzed and lose the ability to walk. So even though they may be running around when you first get them, if you have them on a low protein diet right off the start, they can actually become completely paralyzed and lose the ability to walk after a few days. So you do need to start on that high protein, and then you need to follow a schedule to lower it over time. You guys can do more reading about, look up angel wing. You can find lots of articles about it, angel wing and ducklings, and you can find a lot of articles that could give you more scientific data about what causes that and how to prevent it. But that's the basics, and that's what we do on our farm so that we minimize the chances of that happening. All right, so let's move on to how we feed ducklings. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use one of these trays. Now this is a tray that we just picked up at Walmart. It's for like putting your boots on when you come in the house, but it works really well for the chicks and the ducklings. So we're going to put that down. And then for ducklings, we like these longer feeders like this. Really any kind of chick feeder works, but I like these with the individual openings. These will be good for the first few weeks until their beaks get too big to fit through there. So we're going to open this up. And we're going to fill it up with our game bird food. Again, this is a 22%. Just going to slide that shut. And that will be all that they need for today. All right. Now, before we move on to their water, you can see behind me that I do still have some heat lamps in here as well, even though our weather is warming up. Like I said, we are going to have some nights coming up in the 30s, which means we need to protect these guys overnight, give them a nice warm spot. For the first couple days, I'll probably leave these on, even during the day, so that our brooder here is big enough that they can get away from the heat when they want to. So I'll probably leave these on so if they want to get warm, they can get under here. But the main thing is with ducklings, just like chicks, you want to keep them around 99.5 to 100 degrees for the first, week or so, and then slowly start lowering that temperature until they're just in the normal temperature. Now, my personal experience tells me that ducklings don't need heat nearly as long as chicks do. They seem to develop faster and they seem to stay a little bit warmer just naturally. We'll just play it by ear. The main thing to watch is that if they're all huddled under the heat lamps, it's too cold. If they're all spread out all over the place, it's too warm. That's really the easiest way to tell. And you should be checking on them several times a day anyway, so you should be able to catch those things pretty quickly if you have the temperature wrong. All right, let's move on to their waters, because this is where ducks are a lot different than chicks when you're raising them. Ducklings, well, let's just say they like to make a huge mess out of their waters. But we've come up with a way to at least minimize this. You're never going to prevent it because they are ducks and they do want to get in the water. So let me show you what we do to minimize the amount of mess with the duckling waterers. We moved outside so that we can do a little building project. It's a real simple one that any of you guys can do, but if you're going to raise ducklings, I guarantee you're going to enjoy having this done. Like I said, ducklings are different than chicks when it comes to waterers. Here's what we use for chicks when we raise chicks. Just a store-bought waterer. You fill it up with a gallon of water, screw the lid on, tip it upside down, and lo and behold, it works just fine. The problem with these for ducklings is ducklings love water, and they love to play in the water. So as tiny little ducklings, I've actually seen them stand in this little trough and basically run laps around here until it drains out all this entire gallon of water all over your floor and makes a huge mess. If they don't run around in it, once they get a little bit bigger, they get too big to fit in there, they actually stick their little beaks in there and they'll just stand at the edge of the trough going until all of the water is out of your waterer. So these are a big no-no when it comes to ducklings if you have any other option. What I'm going to show you today is not only cheap, but very effective for giving water to your ducklings, and it's going to cut down on your mess tremendously. So what we're going to be using for the ducklings is one of these storage containers. Now, I picked up a 3-pack of these at Walmart for like $5 or $6. So I'll use the other 2 for something else, and we'll use this one for the ducklings that we're getting today. What we're going to do is we're going to drill some holes in here. I've brought out a hole saw, and we're actually going to drill. These are 1.5 inch holes, so not very big at all. Just big enough for the duckling to be able to get their head in here. Then what we'll be able to do is we'll drill 4 holes on each side of this, and we'll fill this until the water level is just below the holes. Let me do this, and let me drill the holes, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now we're going to drill the holes about 2.5 or 3 inches from the bottom of the waterer. This has a line right here, so I'm going to use that as the center of the hole. You want it high enough that, you know, you can put enough water in here that you don't have to come out every half hour to fill it back up. But you don't want so much that if they make a big mess, your entire floor is flooded. So I'm going to drill 4 holes along here. I'm not going to measure them out. I'm just going to eyeball it and do the best that I can. But I am going to use that line as my starting point for all of them. So let's get those first holes drilled, and then we'll talk a little more. All right, so I've got all 4 holes drilled in here. Now I'm just going to take my pocket knife. I'm just going to trim off any little pieces that may be on there, just so the ducks don't eat them. We'll just smooth those edges out. Now, a lot of you may be wondering if those holes are too small. The answer is no. In fact, if anything, these are a little on the big side for ducks that are just hatched. But because we want this to last at least a few weeks, we're not going to go any smaller than that right now. If you make the holes any bigger than this, believe it or not, the ducklings are just going to climb right through them and use this as a swimming pool. So you want the holes big enough that they can comfortably get their head in to drink, but that it's too small for them to feel comfortable trying to climb through. So that's the entire goal of making one of these waterers, is you want the holes to be, the right size, big enough but not too big. All right, so we have all 8 holes drilled for our waterer here, and we're going to head back into the brooder. Now this will mean that 8 of our ducklings can drink at one time, which is plenty. You don't need, an equal number of drinking holes for every duckling. They're not all going to be drinking at the same time. 8 should be plenty. The other ones should just, learn some manners and wait their turn. So let's head back into the brooder. All right, we're back inside the brooder. Time to get the waterer set up. Now, there is a second thing that we're going to do to help keep everything nice and clean. Again, I can't say this enough times throughout this video. Ducklings love to make a mess. They're going to be messy. No matter what you do, they're going to be messy. Your job is to try to minimize it. So, just like we do when we raise chicks, we're going to be using our water heater pan. You can pick these up at any of your home improvement stores, and these work really well for help containing the mess of chicks and ducklings. So, we're going to put that down. Now, this may look like it's too high for them to get in and out of, but trust me, it's not. Especially with ducklings being motivated to get to the water, they'll be able to jump in and out of this no problem at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our waterer that we just built, and we're going to put that right in the middle of the water heater pan. And now, even if they do make a little bit of a mess, they won't be able to get it all over their bedding. They'll still be able to get out and have a dry place to go. So we're going to fill this up. I am going to use part of that chick water. What I like to do is just keep a 5-gallon bucket of water close by so that when I come out here, if this needs to be topped off a little bit, I have it there handy and I can do it easily. So I'm going to dip some water out of my bucket. And we're going to just fill this new water that we made. And again, we're going to fill this just to the bottom of those holes. Now, one reason why I like to use these clear storage bins too is that the ducklings can actually see the water line, and they're so drawn to that like wavy action and you know, being able to see the water that they'll find this in no time at all. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to leave that just like it is there, and when we bring the ducklings home, we'll set them in the water heater pan and they'll be able to find the water. We'll show you all of that when we get back from the post office later this afternoon. But for now, we're all set up. This is everything we have to do. Now we just have to wait around until 2 o'clock when we can go pick them up from the post office. Well, we're back from the post office and we've got a box of ducklings. Now, like I told you earlier, we are getting 2 different kinds of ducklings today. One of which we've raised in the past and one that is brand new to us. So we're really excited about that. So let's start with the one that we've raised in the past. I'm going to take these out. I'll just take one out first to show you. Here's one of them right here. You can see they're all yellow. Now, we did not get these sexed, so we don't know how many males and females there are. Guys, these are Pekin ducks. These are the all white ducks like on the Aflac commercials. And we actually raised this type of duck when we lived in Arizona. We had a lot of them because we raised them for meat. They are awesome ducks. We absolutely love their personality. They're a dual-purpose duck, so they're a big duck. They're great for meat, but they're also great for eggs. They lay a lot of really big, nice eggs. So we've got 10 of these guys, or girls, we'll have to see. The thing with Pekins, because they're white and the males and females look pretty much exactly the same, it's hard to tell until they get pretty old how many males and females you have. You have to wait until they reach sexual maturity, and then on the males they'll get what's called a drake feather. A drake feather is a curled up feather on their tail. Now when you see that, you know that that's a boy, and if they don't have that feather, you know it's a girl. So we're going to take these out one at a time. We're going to show them where the water is, and then we'll move on to the next ones in the box. Look at that, it's already drinking. It already took its first drink. Alright, here's all the other ones. You're a little guy, or girl. We are very excited to have Pekin ducks back on the homestead. We've never had them here in Missouri, but they sure did good in Arizona, and we really enjoyed them. Good drink. Don't go all the way in. Like I told you guys earlier, they'd have no problem getting in and out of that water heater pan. Look at that. They've only been here for a couple minutes and they're already jumping in and out like it's no problem at all. And there's one inside of the water swimming. Looks like we're going to have to make a smaller waterer for a little while. This is why I always buy multiples of these. So, you guys, learn from my mistake, I guess, on this, that start with a little bit smaller holes. As soon as the video is over, I'm going to make a smaller waterer. So I guess we'll go down to maybe 1-inch holes, and we'll use that one for the first couple weeks. The good thing is we can save these, so as we raise more ducklings in the future, maybe I don't have to make the same mistake each time. I'll remember what size to make. So we'll save this for when they're a couple weeks old, and we'll make another one for the next week or two. All right, but before we do that, let's move on to this next batch of chicks so we can get them out of their box. Now, I will tell you guys, we ordered 10 of this next kind as well. I already peeked in the box before we came back out to do the video, and one of them did not make it on the trip. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but there was one dead duckling in the box. So that happens sometimes with shipping, but we still have 9 other ones that are doing great. Let's go ahead and take one of these out so we can take a look at them. Now, they look completely different. You can see they're yellow with a little black. Their legs have a little bit of black on them. These are called Welsh Harlequin ducks. They're very similar to khaki Campbell ducks, if you're familiar with those, except there are a few things that are supposed to separate these from the khaki Campbells. So when these are older, the females will be kind of a whitish cream color, real pretty, and the males will be a little bit darker with a green head, almost like a mallard, but they're considerably bigger than a mallard. They're considered kind of a medium-sized duck. The things that really set these apart from the khaki Campbells is that these are supposed to be much less flighty. The khaki Campbells can actually fly pretty well, and these aren't supposed to fly much at all. They're supposed to stay pretty well put on the ground, which is exactly what we want. They're also supposed to be great foragers, which is awesome because we're going to be having them in that chicken moat area that we built. And they're also supposed to be good brooders, so they'll raise their own young. So we're really excited about that down the road, to be able to have some that will raise their own babies. All right, so we have 9 of these. Let's go ahead and take them out. We'll do the same thing and just show them where the water is. Well, it looks like they are all doing great. Excited to have more ducks on the homestead. It's something we've been wanting to expand again for a while. Like I said, over the last couple of years, our numbers have just dwindled, but we really enjoy having ducks. So I need to go make another water with smaller holes. You guys learn from my mistake on that. I'm going to put 1-inch holes in this first one that we're going to make so that they absolutely can't get all the way in there and swim. Now, you may be wondering why that's such a big deal. Ducklings really should not be allowed to swim until they're at least a month old. They can get chilled way too easily. Now, you may say that you see wild ducks swimming all of the time with their mom and their tiny little babies. So why is it a big deal? Well, in the wild, the baby ducks will sleep with their mom, and some of the natural oils from the mom's feathers will get on the baby ducks, and that will protect them when they're in the water. But when you're buying ducklings from a hatchery like we are, and they don't have their mother there with them, they don't get that natural oil on their feathers. Look at this one climbing up on my lap. So, because they don't have that natural oil on their feathers from their mom, they basically can soak up all that water like a sponge and get chilled really easily. So until they're about a month old, they won't start to produce that oil themselves. So you really need to keep them out of the water until they're old enough. So that's the reason why, and that's why we need to go make another water to keep these guys nice and safe so that they can have a long, happy life here on the homestead. You guys, if you're enjoying our videos, I hope that you'll hit that subscribe button before you leave. Remember that the absolute best way that you can help us is by sharing all of our videos on your social media to other people who might like a lifestyle like ours. Until next time, thank you guys so much for spending the day with us and stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God bless.